Assalamu alaikum. One correction. I didn't start Snare DC. I just came along. I don't want to steal credit, but that's okay. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here to speak today. Um, I'm honored. It's nice to see everyone here. When I first got this date, January 21st, I thought it was just another Tuesday. I didn't connect it with the more famous Monday that just happened. Um, that's my bad. I need a calendar to help me. Um, yeah, I figured it was a Tuesday just like any other Tuesday, and in some ways it is. Um, in some ways, even the most exceptional dates can still be Monday, and I still have to worry about my laundry when I get home. I still have to feed my cat, but um, this is an exceptional Tuesday, and not everything exceptional is exceptional in a positive way. But this Tuesday, one way or another, sets the tone for every Tuesday moving forward for the next 4 years. And so, with that in mind, I want to share another poem and tie it into this Tuesday. It was written by a Pakistani communist named Faiz Ahmed Faiz, and he began as a love poet. If you know something about South Asian and Central Asian poetry, we love talking about one thing, which is mostly just love. But as he got older, his works carried a more political and a more revolutionary tone to them, also a more religious tone to them, which is in line with his politics. And actually, in one case, it was his politics that got him put in prison. But in certain circles, Faiz is remembered not as a Muslim, but as an atheist. One thing that's important to note about Faiz is that when he was writing during a time, during a dictatorship in Pakistan, led by a guy named Imran Haq, no relation for the last name. But he used the language of Orthodox religion to justify his rule. He used the language of Islam to cement himself into power. And it's why Faiz, who led prayers in his life, who taught the Quran when he was in prison, who self-identified as a Muslim and a follower of the Sufi poetic tradition, who wrote a poem in praise of the Prophet in Persian, is remembered by some as a disbeliever. Because when the state starts to co-opt faith, the most damaging thing a person who uses their faith and their ethical convictions to resist, to critique, the most damaging thing they can be called is a disbeliever. So with that background, the poem I want to share today is called My Beloved, Do Not Ask Me for the Love That I Once Gave You. And it reads, My beloved, do not ask me for the love that we shared before. Your countenance is assurance of perennial spring. I always thought that life would shine eternally in your presence. We share our grief. Why argue over the sorrows of existence? For what is the worth of this world but the sight of your eyes? And had I only found you, destiny would be at my feet. But it wasn't so, except that I wanted it to be. There are sorrows in this world far beyond the anguish of love, and there is more to happiness than the relief of reunion. Blinded by dark magic for years beyond count, young bodies draped in silk, satin, and brocade are for sale in alleys and marketplaces. Bodies emerge from furnaces of pestilence, dragged in dirt, bathed in blood. From leaking ulcers, pus flows untapped. And my eyes cannot look away. So what should I do? Your beauty still allures, but what can I do? There are sorrows in this world far beyond the pleasures of love. and there is more to happiness than the relief of reunion. So, my beloved, do not ask from me the love that we shared before. For me, this poem is striking. It tells the story of the writer Faiz split between his beloved and the injustice that he sees in the world. And it's a split that perhaps many of us can resonate with. Our beloved, maybe it's a person, maybe it's the choice to remain isolated, the choice to cut ourselves off, the choice to protect our peace, or the choice to pay attention, to strive for a happiness beyond the joy of reunion, the happiness perhaps of liberation, the happiness perhaps of justice. And it would be easy for him to lose himself in his beloved. It would be easy to give everything to her. But after he sees what he's seen, he asks the question, what can I do? When faced with injustice, oppression, and violence, he says, your beauty still allures. I still care about you. I still want to connect. But what am I supposed to do? In our current moment, and that's a broad moment for things happening here and elsewhere, we face a choice when we're confronted by injustice, when we're confronted by oppression, when we're confronted by violence. Do we retreat into ourselves? Do we pretend that we alone are unaffected by the suffering and death of other human beings? Is a glance from our beloved enough to trade the world? But ultimately, if Faiz made that choice, if he retreated into his beloved, it's not the love of his love that he would obtain. It's not the love of his love that would drive him, but it's the love of himself, for his safety, for his comfort. I want to take a short detour from a moment from Faiz, but inshallah we'll come back together. Within the Islamic tradition, we believe when we die and when our bodies are put in the grave, we're asked a question. We're asked multiple questions, but this is the first one. Man Rabbuka? Who is your Lord? And it's this question, it's our answer to this question that affects our experience in the world between life and death. After this world, but before resurrection. Is it a painful experience or a peaceful one? But as people of faith, as people of conscience, as human beings, we're asked the same question in life. Man Rabbuka? Who is our Lord? And just as we don't die at the same time, we don't receive this question at the same time, but there comes a point in our lives when we're inevitably confronted by this question, Man Rabbuka? And as people of faith, as people of conscience, as human beings, we have to think about our answer. Do we choose a Lord of comfort, a Lord that inclines for us to sit back and watch as others suffer, to ignore? Do we choose a Lord that compels us not to look at the world around us? A Lord who tells us that we're innocent, without realizing that, as James Baldwin wrote, is the innocence that constitutes the crime. Our willful ignorance, our ability to smile and pretend that we don't live in a moment that's fueled by death, that's fueled by the grinding of oppressed bodies to extract everything they have, to extract everything that they are. Do we choose a Lord that tells us it really is all about us? Those lords of nationalism, of individualism, of societal norms, of our own self and our own ego. Or do we choose a Lord of justice? Do we choose a Lord of mercy? A Lord of compassion, a Lord who commands us that our wealth is the possession of others before it's the possession of ourselves, that we do owe a responsibility to those in need, to those in hunger, to those who suffer with the boot of others on their back, who says that indeed we owe something to each other? Do we choose a Lord who commands us to liberate the enslaved, to liberate those in captivity, to create a world of liberation, of equity, of freedom? Do we choose a Lord who commands us not to shut our eyes, but to bear witness, to remember the sacrifice, the suffering, and to never forget, because it is to remember, it is the act of remembering that gives those sacrifices meaning. It is to remember that allows those sacrifices to bring change. Fayez in his poem makes a choice. He cannot forget what he's seen. He cannot forget the bodies. He cannot forget the dirt. He cannot forget the blood. He makes the choice that he cannot return to loving the same as he could before. He cannot return to living life the same as he was living it before. And that whatever he does moving forward is conditioned on the remembrance of what he saw. That whatever he does moving forward is conditioned on the changing of what he saw. And as people of faith, as people of conscience, as human beings, we will reach a point where we must ask ourselves who we want to be. We will reach a point where we must ask ourselves what we want to do in the world. We will reach a point we will reach a point where we are asked that fundamental question of Man Rabbuka, who is our Lord? And when we are asked that question, we must think very seriously about what our answer will be. Thank you.